There are some differences between how you handle them. Does anybody have a least favorite topic?
I
Everybody
do.
say it at the same time.
Science.
The science for everybody. Okay.
Science.
Science. Yes. Okay. So everyone, as of now, everyone, go ahead and just pick science as your favorite topic, because with my approach, science is going to become the easiest. Why? Because even though the terms are difficult, if we learn to break down sentences, the questions are actually the easiest. Has anybody had that aha moment yet, or are we still working on that?
Still working on it.
Okay, no. When we really work on breaking down sentences, and the reason is oftentimes humanities and law passages are very hard to keep straight who's saying what. So I always start with that. Learn to fall in love with, Jasmine just said is it your favorite because you get them right?
It's my favorite because I'm a scientist.
Oh, that's not even fair. She has an unfair advantage at this test on levels I can't even explain.
I can't stand humanities, so that's my heart.
No, humanities for me is the most interesting, but it is the most difficult. I tend to miss the most questions. Excellent. Okay, so all reading comp is each section is 15 to 17 sentences. We still think that they're intimidating. My general suggestion is to do the passages and questions in order. The only time that we're not going to do the passages in order is if there's if there's a topic you absolutely hate. But right now, what I'm going to say here is don't assume that you hate science yet. We're too far out of the test for us to be like, oh, science passage, skipping over it. Because a lot of people, this is a point where you can really help yourself on the curve, where a lot of people hate science. And so if you can get in, and they don't even try. So if you can get a 1 up there and really invest there, we just asked the class that all of us hate it. So if we can get a 1 up there and focus on that gives us a plus as we go into the test. Typically, it gets harder as you go throughout the section. Sometimes 3 is harder than 4. I would actually say that it probably depends more on the topic between 3 and 4 on which one is harder, just based on your own background knowledge. Most test takers should only do 3 passages and do them well. If you can only do 2 passages well, only do 2 for now in a time section, only do 2 passages well. So if there's 7 questions, doing them well should be getting 6 out of 7. And if you can get 6 out of 7 twice, that's 14. So if you guess on the rest and you just get 2 right, 6 out of 7, that's 12. Yeah. If you guess on the rest and you get 2 right, that's a 14. 6 plus 6 is 12. 12 plus guessing on 2 is 14. That's still a really decent score. And a lot of us are scoring 14s doing all 4, trying to get through all 4 sections. So imagine if we get to the point where you're getting to 2.5 sections well, and you're getting 14 questions right, you're guessing on 2, that's a 16, and you need to get 16 questions right on average per section to get a 160 on the test. So that's how important it is. And lastly, predict, predict, predict. So what is your job when you approach a reading comp passage? The main goal is that you're going to read one sentence 15 to 17 times, not the actual one sentence. There's 15 to 17 sentences, and we're literally going to read them as individual sentences. It's just like, it's as if every sentence is its own stimulus. That's how important breaking down a sentence is. And as you're reading this, the main thing that we need to be thinking about is, why is the author wasting your time with this? Why are they writing it? As you're reading this, are they writing it to educate you? Are they writing it to inform you? Are they writing to persuade you? Are they writing to teach you about something? Are they wanting something to change? Are they advocating for something? Do they care? As I'm reading this, that is the most important thing that I'm thinking about. And what is the difference between, as you're reading it at the very end, before you go on to the questions, one thing you have to ask yourself was, what was the main point of this passage? What is it? What is the main point? Gaia?
Me and myself, the main point.
Yes.
Well,
like in each, you said each paragraph or each passage?
At the end of the passage.
At the end of the passage, the main point, it's what the author is writing the entire passage for. That's what I
Okay, I like that you said, I'm very glad that you said the word for and not about, because there's a big difference between the two. I think growing up when we did reading comp growing up, main point tended to be like, what's the best summary of the passage? That is not what reading comp is on the LSAT. Main point on the LSAT is just like a conclusion question on a stimulus. It's why did the author write this? What was the one point that they wanted you to get to? I believe someone I forget who it was, told me one good, which we'll get into question types later, but when you think about the main point, when you do get to that question, someone once had the most amazing advice, and it was, if you're narrowing it down, the answer to a main point question, you should be able to pull something out of every single paragraph that supports it. And I just thought that was a really good tip. And then lastly, how long do you spend just on average, just reading the passage? So you open your book, you get to a passage, you don't look at any of the questions. How long do you spend just reading it? I want everybody to put in time. How long? And there are several students that have time accommodations in our class. So if you do, go ahead and just share or just take that in context of how you divide them up. But how long are you taking to read the passage? Go ahead and put that in the chat now. I'm proud of a lot of you because I don't think a lot of you are, finally Alma is one that we can call out a little bit this morning. He says 3 minutes, or Trish says too long. Trish, how long is too long? Are you spending 15 minutes or do you think 5 minutes is too long?
I mean, I would say I might read it within 6 minutes, but then whenever I have to go back and answer the questions, I'm having to then kind of go back through
again. All right, awesome. So I'm on the same page. I got to the point, starting out, I was reading it in like 2 to 3.5 minutes, which is way too fast. Because I wasn't that was pretty much a whole waste of 3.5 minutes because I didn't retain anything that I read and I was going to the questions and I was constantly having to reference back to the passage. The next thing is I got to the point where I was spending more like 7 minutes reading a passage and I was only focusing on 3. If that's where you're at today, that is fine. I actually got to the point where I spent more time reading the passage than I did actually on the questions. So we're going to spend a lot of time at the first part of this class and the next class really focusing on reading, and then we're going to pair it with question types, because once you understand a passage, you can actually pretty much fly through questions just by being able to eliminate wrong answer choices. And so that's the ultimate goal of where we're going. Gaia?
Yeah, so did you start doing 3 at first and then you ended up doing 4? Is that what you said?
I actually, no, I got a, hold on, do I have that on here? Oh, I don't have it on here. Okay. I actually, when I got a 171, I only did 3 reading comp passages and guessed on the 4th.
Wow.
But I probably
good guessing.
No, I got to the point where my accuracy, like I was getting -0 to -1 on LR and logic games. So on reading comp, I had the flexibility where I did the 3 passages that had the most questions, and I probably got all of them right. I maybe missed 1 question, and then I guessed on the last question where I could only, to do the flex, I only could miss 7 questions to guarantee a 170. And I could have done all 4 passages and maybe got like a 174 or something, but it wasn't worth the risk because once I speed up, if I would mess one of those passages up by racing, I would have lost I couldn't have scored in the 170s.
Sorry.
So I practice what I preach, I guess is the point of that.
Was the test really hard? The flex for you? Was it difficult or was it just like?
I did June.
Oh.
I don't really remember. I actually didn't
really
remember. I more so, yeah, I don't really it wasn't, no, I didn't think it was hard, but I've taken so many of the tests that
Oh yeah.
I don't think anything would really, to be honest, that would throw me too much. Should you take notes? So this is a big debate. I'm okay with highlighting some. I don't believe in over highlighting, because the goal of taking notes when we go to class is we take notes or we highlight because we have to reference our notes down the road. We have to come back to them and like kind of know what they were talking about. Our goal of reading comp is just to remember what we read for a short period of time. So instead of wasting energy on highlighting and writing down notes, what I do is I call it sitting on a sentence, and I read a sentence and I just stop, and instead of writing the notes down, I almost just make the notes in my head. But the difference is, I think a lot of people also say to take notes because they don't have the discipline to stop and think about what they read. So that's why you're taking notes. But if we have that discipline, we don't need to be taking a bunch of notes. I'm not saying never write down anything. However, I think there's some programs out there that have like this whole approach of like for like what you write, when you write. I think Cora, you were telling me about it. I think it sounds crazy.
Yeah, that was when I was in Keith and Jake's group.
Oh.
Not to throw them under the bus or anything, but yeah, they were doing the whole TLDR thing, and then they were doing
I don't know what TLDR means. Like I think
it's like
Wait, what is that? A TLDR? I'm sorry, I
it's
missed it.
basically making sure that if you're gonna write a note, or like if you're gonna do a main point, it's like your main point of each passage in 7 words or less is what TLDR is. It's like,
Okay.
I forget what the actual, it's like, how can you're talking too much and how can you make it shorter? So 7 words or less. And then the other thing that Keith likes to do is the law approach of something versus something. Because traditionally you have different point of views, and you're going to be writing all the different point of views that they're going to be talking about throughout the passages. So it did become a lot of writing.
Yeah, and I think that's a waste of time, but that's a personal thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But you're okay with highlighting though, right?
Yeah, but don't over highlight.
Don't over highlight, right?
When you over highlight, it's just like why I believe in reading the stimulus first. You can't focus on highlighting more than actually letting yourself digest what you're reading.
Yeah, I highlight things where I know where the author's making a turn, where you use this word but or however. That's when I highlight those words, because I know that's where we're having a change.
I also think, Cora, you are like, you have good discipline of making yourself sit on sentences as well, though. Where like I don't have a problem with her making some highlights. Some students, I was one of them. If I start highlighting, I start thinking about the highlighting and not what I'm reading.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 15.
Nicole, I was gonna say, for me, just quickly, sometimes reading it, but then actually writing it and seeing it makes a difference for me. So I'm not saying we write the whole paragraph, but there might be certain sections that just some people are, you got to see it, then you have to write.
That I've heard that before. I'm gonna ask you to try it once without it, just to see.
Why? Yeah.
If you, maybe or I also know, like, I have taken the test before and I've written down like 2 things before. So I don't want to say I've never written down anything. However, I don't want it to be that, and I don't want to disagree because you know how you study best, but I don't want it to become a thing where you're writing, so like you're wasting a minute, 2 minutes just writing. But if you're going to be like, hey, one, like, point A here, and then like versus person B, and like writing, hey, here's A, here's B, here's A, like I totally get that. And my opinion on writing has changed a little bit since it, and I should go back and say this, since the test went digital. If you are taking a paper test, that is different. Does that make sense? If you are taking the digital test, if you're taking the digital test, I think it's harder to write, because you're not writing on the document, you have to write on your scrap paper. Right. And that, I think, I don't think it has the same benefit as if you're taking a paper test. Okay, so what we're going to do here is everybody pull up like a Word document, or pull up Microsoft Word, or get a piece of paper. And what we're going to do is I want you to read each of these sentences. As I said, not take notes. I want you to read one sentence at a time and just write in your own words the summary of it. So how many sentences do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 sentences. We'll take 4 minutes to do this. Once you're finished, if you have extra time for each sentence, I want you to circle or just right beside your translated sentence, what is the subject of that sentence? And once you're done, go ahead and put done in the chat. All right, 1 more minute. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and give an example. Actually, I'll give my example in a second. Okay, so for sentence number 1, Jemmy, can you read it and give us your, read the sentence and then give us your summary?
Economists have long defined prosperity in terms of monetary value, gauging a nation's prosperity solely on the basis of total monetary value of the goods and services produced annually. Whew, that's a pretty long sentence. And what they're basically telling is how economics define prosperity. And there's some details telling there about like it's on the basis of total monetary value of goods and services which are produced annually.
All right, so thank you. Tip number one, and you hit it, I love that you started with it. It's a really long sentence. Tip number one, don't be afraid to break sentences into 2 sentences. When I read this is what I do. Economists have long defined prosperity in terms of monetary value. Period. They gauge a given nation's prosperity solely on the basis of the total monetary value of the goods and services produced annually. Isn't it so much easier to understand this when it's a simple tip, but when it's 2 different sentences? Practice that and you're gonna get slower to get, this is once again gonna get slower to get faster. But now I don't have to break it into 2 sentences. My brain almost naturally does it because I get to this and I see this comma and I'm like, oh, we're gonna give a definition or apply what we just said. And I let my brain catch up. Cora, can you do sentence number 2, please?
Sure. So, however, and this is always something that I would highlight in my own, just because I know we're taking a turn. So, however, critics point out that defining prosperity solely as a function of monetary value is questionable, since it fails to recognize other kinds of values. And it gives examples such as quality of life, environmental health, that contribute directly to prosperity in a broader case. So I broke this down to but, which is also another however. Critics think no one thinks differently on the definition of economy. It doesn't recognize other things that are valuable, and it gives examples like quality of life and environment.
Yes, my definition, I didn't write anything down, but mine would be, hey, but critics point out that by defining prosperity just by money, we're leaving out things like environmental health and quality of life, things that just don't have a money sense that we still value. I watched a law lecture, so certain schools will send you law. I watched Michigan had a tax law class that I watched, and it was like, should you be taxed on enjoying your job? Like if that value is $150,000, like should you be taxed? I thought it was interesting. That's why I'm going to law school. Anyways, excellent job, Cora. Sentence number 3, Katie.
For example, as the Earth's ozone layer weakens and loses its ability to protect people from ultraviolet radiation, sales of hats, sunglasses, and sunscreens are likely to skyrocket, all adding to the nation's total expenditures. So, in this example, when the Earth's ozone layer weakens, people are more suspect to UV radiation, which means that more products related to that are going to be sold and purchased.
Awesome. When I read this the first time, I struggled to understand, when I just read it without reading the next sentence, I didn't really understand what this was referencing to or what the point was until I thought about it. Did anybody else struggle with that, or right away did you understand how this example fit in?
I started thinking of, what is your famous thing that you like to do on a weekend or strengthen question? It's hot outside.
Oh.
So that's what I went to that. It's hot outside. So our demand for sunglasses and UV protection is going to go up.
I agree. Okay, I love that you're doing that. But why, for me, this example kind of comes out of left field. Why does it matter until you read the next sentence? Why does this, why, and I questioned this and I thought of a reason why and I came to it, but not without, normally old Nicole would have read this and I would have just moved on to the next sentence and not thought about it. but I pretty much predicted the next sentence without reading it, which helps with my engagement level and helps with my comprehension. Why, without reading, without that sentence, why would we include this example? What must be true of this example before we read it?
It's proving the demand for the, so basically it's going back to the definition that the critics said. So talking about environmental can actually affect demand, and that's how you're going at, he's breaking down the first econ definition. So this right here actually gives you that example of how, because the environment, it's hot outside, for example, the environment can make people end up buying things, and it gives you examples of those. So that means your demand of those are going to go high. So that means your money, your value, it's going to be, and because of environment, your money, prosperity is actually going to go up. So it's your value. You can't get, so it's basically, again, saying the very first sentence, it can't just be the value of the goods. The environment can actually make people want to buy those things, instead of just saying that a 50-inch TV is valuable at $2,000.
Did everybody, when they read this example, did everybody take that level of detail to think about why this example was important?
Sorry.
No,
I just thought,
no, that's great. That's what this exercise is for us to get better at quickly making these, like, not, Cora's been practicing this for weeks. So if you're not on that level, do not feel bad. She's made great improvements on this. But if we don't put ourselves in we don't give ourselves the opportunity to become better readers and predictors, we're never going to get better at reading comp. Gaia, what were you going to say?
yeah, I was just gonna say kind of like what she said, that I just thought this is an example of something else that can bring value, like can bring prosperity to a nation. That's all I thought to myself. Like, this is just showing that something else, except other than money. So in this case, it was the environment, the ozone layer is bringing in prosperity.
Awesome. All right. And Alma, do you want to do the last sentence?
In this way, troubling reductions in environmental health and quality of life may in fact initiate economic activity that by the economists measure bolsters prosperity. So it kind of just concludes all three sentences. It talks about the definition that the economists have, but then it also brings in where it talks about the environmental health contributes to prosperity also. So to me, it just kind of linked everything together.
Right. This is a really important sentence because it's saying, like in this example or in this way, the reductions in environmental health and quality of life may initiate economic activity, which obviously is what we're saying here with these critics. However, this economic activity, by the original economist definition, does bolster prosperity. So do we see how we're connecting sentence 1 and sentence 2 with sentence 4? Maybe this is all common sense for everybody. This was not common sense to me when I first started reading comp, how important it was to see these connections. So, okay. So this was past 46. I believe it was reading comp 46, passage 1. For homework, I'm not going to add any sections or anything, but start adding this drill. I believe Derek already does it, but start adding one of these drills to your study habits. Like, do just one so not one section, do one passage every day. And so what you're going to do is you're going to spend 5 minutes. If you have additional time, spend 8 minutes. Or if 5 minutes is not enough time, give yourself more time. This 5 minutes is more so as a minimum rather than a maximum. And this is just for one drill. This is not what you're going to do on the test for all 4 sections. This is just for us to work on our reading comprehension accuracy. So what you're going to do is you're going to read the individual passage for 5 minutes. And at the end, ask yourself, you're going to go sentence by sentence, how we just did. You're going to ask yourself, what was the main point of the passage? What was the author's goal? And was it a positive, neutral, or negative piece? And then before you do the questions for that passage, go to LSAT CACS or Manhattan Prep or some resource that you have that outlines or gives an analysis of the passage, not the questions, just the passage. And I want you to make sure that what you read and the main points that you came up with is aligning with what they're saying. And if not, pay attention to where you started going wrong and how often you're going wrong. Then and only then would I answer the questions. And we're going to talk more about this next time, but when answering questions, always predict an answer when you can. It will save you a lot of time in the long run. Once again, it's going to slow you down to get faster. But if it says, what does the word capital mean in line 52? I would go read line 52 and I would come up with my own my own definition of what capital means there before I would read the answer choices. It is going to take you more time to get faster at this. But in the long run, it does significantly help, especially on answer choices when they all start looking the same. And I'm going to put a link to this in the website for today's class. Stop share. I'm going to leave. So I'm going to go ahead and end class now if anybody has any questions. I do have that LR class today at 12, and like in a half hour if people are wanting to join. The other thing is I'm going to leave my Zoom meeting open if people want to get put into groups and finish this passage together and do the questions together. It's not going to be a part of class. I'm just going to leave it open for whoever wants to stay on and continue working on finishing this passage in particular.
Nicole, are you going to record the review section this afternoon?
Yes, yes, as long as someone reminds me.
Okay, please record and just send it to me because I have a 1-year-old that's not going to allow me to stay.
Of course. Bye, Jasmine. Have a great day.
Can I still submit the RC?
Yes, all homework. There is never a deadline to submitting your homework. So say you have a wedding, this week, and you just know that this is a busy week. You can submit your stuff next week, right? Like I'm constantly looking at it. I'm constantly looking at it and pulling in the information. There's no deadline to submitting it. However, I'm not going to transfer over those forms to class number 3 on the website because I have it linked to an Excel sheet. So you do have to go to the right class page to submit your homework. Because then, or else it just gets you confusing on my end where I have it, when you submit that form, it goes into my Excel sheet. So I don't want to have 2 different forms going into one Excel sheet or going into 2 different Excel sheets.
Okay. Is the LR review still on this Zoom? Can we keep the Zoom open or is it going to be on a different Zoom?
Well, I'm going to let this class, like whoever's staying on to do, who wants to stay on to do the reading comp exercise? If nobody does, that's totally fine. Cora's a no.
I need to go grab some lunch.
Is anybody a yes? No, nobody's a yes. That's totally fine. I mean, we've been going for an hour and a half, so I just wanted to give people the opportunity. So I'm going to close this meeting and reopen it, but it will be the same link. I just want to let this class I want to end the recording and start a new recording.
Okay. So we would come back at 11:30. I mean, 12:30. I'm sorry.
12:30 Eastern time. Yep. And
Eastern time. Okay. Thank you.
If we don't attend the LR class for the review of 45, is there a way we can access it later? Like, are you recording it?
I'm going to, if I remember.
I'll remind you. I'll be back.
I've been getting better at it. I just always throw that in there because I don't want to promise and then let someone down.
Just put right here, remind me code.
Awesome. And someone just asked, how do you pay? I either can just charge you for it after the class, on the card that you've submitted, or I can send you an invoice. Don't worry about paying before you join. I'm not going to stress about that right now. I want people to come and review this. Sound good? Anybody have any other questions?
You're going to send a link, right? Or maybe I missed it. Oh my God. Did you say it's going to?
This same link.
It's the same link. Okay, great. You're right. You said it. Okay, sorry.
Side note. Okay, I'm going to turn off the recording now.